Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hope you're all doing well, inshallah. My name is Bushra Tehleen, and Alhamdulillah, I am honored to host today's webinar, Mind Over Chaos, Finding Focus in Undistracted World. And speaker, Alhamdulillah, here are Miss Yasmin Tour for today's webinar. Before starting webinar, I would like to introduce myself a little bit. I am a volunteer at IOU and member of the IOU Student Committee, Alhamdulillah, in the United States. I'm very grateful to have experience in life coaching, and by profession, I am an ultrasound tech. International Open University was established in 2007 by Dr. Bilal Phillips. It offers a wide range of programs and courses all around the world. Some courses that are listed here are Islamic Studies, Psychology, Business Administration, Information Technology, Arabic, Banking and Finance, Education, and there are other programs that include Quran memorization and General Diploma in Islamic Studies. Ilm Institute short courses are also affiliated with IOU. And if you want to know more about International Open University, you are very welcome to visit the website. The topics, inshallah, we are going to cover today are nature of distraction, importance of focus, and how to regain focus in a world that cultivates restlessness and chaos. I'm very honored to introduce our speaker, Ms. Yasmin Tour. She holds a bachelor's in plant science and an MPhil in plant science, graduating top of her class with distinguish of a gold medal. She holds a high diploma and a master in Islamic studies from IOU, decade-long experience of mentoring young researchers. Now I would like to hand over mic to her so we can continue this amazing and beautiful session, inshallah ta'ala.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم أما بعد Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Jazakallah khairan, Sister Bushra, for the introduction, both of the session and myself. Can you quickly get, feedback from the audience if my, voice is clear? And then we shall begin.
Yes, inshallah. As I can hear you, so I will ask in the chat if everyone can hear you, inshallah.
Okay.
If you guys can hear Sister Yasmin Tour, so please comment yes, inshallah ta'ala, so we can continue.
Are we getting any feedback?
I'm checking as we can. Yes, it's clear. And slides are also sharing.
Okay. Alhamdulillah. Okay. Let's dive right in. I am going to try to make this as interactive as possible, so I'll appreciate it if you, give in your comments into the live chat so I can, interact with you. This is not going to be just an ordinary boring lecture, and I'll try. So we'll, dive right in. So today's topic is mind over chaos. As Sister Busher already introduced, it's about finding focus in a distracted world. So let's begin by a simple question to which I want you to respond in the live chat. Have you ever felt overwhelmed by the constant noise around you? That noise may be social media, it may be related to work, maybe coming from your personal life, the responsibilities that you have, expectations from people around you, you know, um, all these things, pulling you into different directions all at once, and you feel that your mind is racing and unable to focus on a certain single task for an extended period of time. So if you have ever felt this way, um, just give us a thumbs up or, let us know in the chat box. Okay, so let me begin by telling you that if you have ever felt this way, it doesn't have to be all of these things. It could be one, it could be two, it could be any three or four, even all of these that I have listed or more. You are not alone. Many people that wouldn't talk about it feel how you feel. And in today's fast-paced life, distraction and feeling like going into all these different directions at once, when in reality, you're not going anywhere, has become the norm. Today's distracted, restless, and stressed human being is actually the perfect product of modernism. And it's the perfect product that modernization in life has produced. So if you're feeling that way, it's because circumstances around you for the past couple of decades have been set up to lead you to this point. Because in today's fast-paced world, one of the big, let's say, agendas is to detach human beings from what really matters, detach human beings from being able to focus on the true purpose of their life and getting them entangled in things that seem to matter, superficially at least, but they don't actually do anything for your personal, spiritual, or psychological well-being. So this distraction is actually the norm. If anyone in our audience is from the 80s or the 90s, you can have a comparison between what life was like 10, 15, 20 years ago versus what life is like now. Anyone born in the early 2000s might have a little bit of a comparison. If you're born in the mid to late, 2005, 2010, then you pretty much don't have anything else to compare this life to. And distraction, restlessness, stress is all you have ever known. And it might feel normal to you, at least at this point in life. But there will come a point when it goes to a level that you are so overwhelmed and you cannot keep up with all the distraction around you. So it's safe to say that more people than you know suffer from this. And if you recognize this, then this is step one. And if you don't recognize this, then probably recognizing this in front of anyone wouldn't make you a standalone case. The person in front of you pretty much would be suffering from anything related. That is a high probability. So after setting the tone for this talk, the purpose is to look at distractions, what causes it, what focuses, what the power of focus is, how focus can change the way your brain works, the way your brain is wired, and to equip you with tools, both spiritual and practical, that will help you over time to regain control over your mind. So, first of all, in order to understand how to overcome chaos, we need to look at the nature of chaos, like what kind of distractions we have around us and where they come from, what the nature is. So we have mental noise, which comes from within you, your own thoughts, your mind, jumping from one thing to another. Sometimes it's intentional, often it's uninvited, and this creates a constantly running, brain or mental chatter. So that could manifest in ways that if you are working on one thing physically, your mind might be at a completely different place, submerged in completely different thoughts. It might happen to a lot of you people at night when you're trying to sleep. Suddenly, as soon as you hit the bed, all these, suppressed thoughts, they come out to the top layer of your brain, and suddenly you don't know what you're thinking anymore. You're not tired mentally. You struggle to sleep. So this is all, mental noise that comes from within. Then we have, types of chaos and distractions that come from your environment, which might be digital or sensory overload. Let's look at the digital overload, which is one of the main reasons people are distracted, especially the youth of today. So there was a time when if you wanted to know anything about anything, pretty much, you had to physically, look up someone in person to ask them about what you wanted to know. But we live in a time where we suffer from information overload, as we can call it. It's the constant flow of information, notifications, email, social media updates, and anything, pretty much anything you think about is, you can look it up. And where there is information, there is also misinformation. So let me give you a classic example. Many of us might be able to relate to this. Let me know if you do. For example, your eye starts to twitch, and as you focus on its twitching, it starts to water. And as it starts, watering, it turns red. And then you think there is something wrong with your eye. The first thing, maybe 10, 20 years ago, would have been like you would have gone, splashed some cold water over it, slept over it a night, waited for it to settle, maybe apply a compress or something. And if it didn't settle, then you would go see a doctor. Okay, am I back?
Yes.
Am I back?
Yes,
Oh,
you are
okay,
back.
I dropped out for a minute.
Okay.
Could you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Where did I get cut off?
So yes, we can hear you, and screen is back.
Okay, so I was talking about, the overload of information or misinformation that we have. So I was, giving you a classic example that many of us might be able to relate to. So, like I said, if 10, 20 years ago your eye suddenly started twitching, it suddenly started to water, became red, you would probably, splash some water over it, maybe applied a cold compress, and then waited a night, slept over it, maybe waited a day or two, even if it didn't get better, and then ultimately get an appointment from the doctor and then see him or her in person to, know what's going on with your eye. But today, what would be the first thing any of us does if our eyes suddenly started twitching and, watering and it became red and itchy? We would grab our phones, we would Google our symptoms, and there would be so much information that we could be tricked into thinking that we have the tiniest of problems all the way up to maybe sudden vision loss. So this is something that distracts your mind. It causes unease in your thoughts. It, stresses you out, and it creates a sense of chaos for your body physically and your mind mentally. So this is, another classic example of how information overload that primarily comes from the digital overload. Everything's easy, everything's in the palm of your hands. You have access to all the information and misinformation within a matter of seconds. So you don't hesitate to absorb all this information, but your brain really doesn't know what to do, where to store, and how to compartmentalize all that information. So this leads to digital overload. Then we also have sensory overload that comes from your external environment as well. So we live in an age where, consumerism is on the rise. Having as many materially important, superficially at least, things in your reach is considered a part of being successful. So your environments have around you more things physically than you actually need. And that sometimes leads to crowded spaces um, and, sensory overload. And this is also one thing that, contributes to chaos and a distracted mindset. So, with regards to digital overload, I also would like to add that there are studies that give us some statistics that the average person checks their phone every 12 minutes. And biologically, if you are engaged in a certain activity and you turn away from it and check on your phone, even for a couple of minutes, after you put it away, finally, don't even start with all the doom scrolling that goes on, nowadays. It actually can take your brain up to 25 minutes to rewire and refocus. So that is focus lost, neural pathways that are, interrupted, and that is time lost, that is, energy that is dissipated and not, turned into anything useful whatsoever. And it also accounts for, the distraction and the mental noise that we just talked about. Now let's go on to social pressure, which is societal expectations. They contribute to distractions because we have been led to believe that being busy all the time, being productive all the time, and being connected to the world, telling the world what we are doing, how we are doing it all the time, is some sort of a misconstrued definition of success. And this sense of pressure to, keep up with the people around you who seemingly, I always say seemingly, are, very successful or well put together, creates a constant societal pressure, which some people might, take better than others. Some people may be able to deal with it better than others, but all in all, it, contributes to having a distracted mind overall. And this is also one of the leading causes of chaotic mindsets, the inability to focus, and people being distracted. And might I add, we are supposed to feel this way. As per, the people who put out all this technology, the people who want to keep the ordinary person so locked up in all these things so that they can focus on things bigger and lead the rest of the population where they want to lead them. And normal people like you and I, we are distracted, our minds are chaotic, and we don't really know what's going on. So we are supposed to feel this way. So it's about breaking the curse that modern day life has, put on us, and we have let it put on us. So let's go on to the next slide. Another question I would, appreciate a response to, if you're able to, send in anything over the live chat, is, have you ever felt like your mind is, all over the place? If yes, what were the causes and how did it make you feel physically? And while you were feeling like your mind is all over the place, were you able to focus on the one thing that you were supposed to be doing? Yes or no? I can't see any responses in the live chat. I don't know if your people are writing in there or. Okay, I see something. Okay, what I'm going to do is we are going to go to the next slide and I'll come back and scroll through all of your responses and then take them in the question section, if that is okay with all of you. Okay, now that we've, taken apart chaos, let's go on to the opposite of chaos. What we want to achieve is focus. So in order to regain focus, we need to be able to understand the power of focus and the science behind a focused mind, what focus actually does to your brain. So we have cognitive benefits. If we have focused attention, we are able to arrive at better decisions. We have improved memory. We have greater emotional regulation. And there are tons and tons of researches that tell us that when we focus, our brain's prefrontal cortex actually gets activated, and this is the part of our brain that governs rational thinking and decision making. So there's neuroscience that supports the benefits of a focused mind to your brain in reality. Have you ever heard of flow? The expression of being in the flow or going with the flow. That's a slang expression, but it actually has a scientific basis to it. So a focused brain is able to do peak performance tasks in comparison with someone who is distracting themselves with overloading thoughts. So in today's world, we might have been led to believe that being able to multitask is something that everybody should do, can do, and must do all the time. But the reality is, while our brain has the ability to multitask in general, not everyone is, genetically equipped to focus on different things all at once and, have a good performance in, doing all these tasks all at once. So, when we are thinking about the next thing while not having finished what we're doing, actually lowers our performance for the task that we are physically doing at the moment. So, focusing on the task that you have, having a clear agenda, what should come next, but don't worry about how you're going to do it. Just worry about it when you get there, is a more rational, conservative, and let's say safe approach if you are not a multitasking genius by design. So there are people who are, really good at multitasking and they do it all the time and they feel energized when they do it, but that's not everybody. The same way everybody isn't a math genius, the same way everybody isn't an artist. So that's also an attribute and a trait that the human brain is capable of doing, but not necessarily every one of us, can do it. So focusing on things one by one at a time actually gives us more energy and makes us feel less tired at the end. So, talking about the flow state, the concept of flow is a state where we are so deeply lost in an activity and we lose track of time and we are actually the most productive. It's a state where the work we are doing actually feels effortless and we are able to achieve maximum results. So this flow state, as we call it, actually comes from focusing on the one single task that is at hand. Um, you don't achieve the being in the flow if you're looking at, 10 things you need to do all at once. So this is the power of focus, is where you really you lose track of time and you only look up when you're done and you realize how long you've been at it, and then you're relieved that you've done it. And most of the times, work done in this way is actually the best quality of work you've done if you look at it and compare it with things that you've done before of similar nature. So focus also has physiological or physical benefits. Focus can help us, lower stress levels because when we are distracted, our brain is actually constantly on alert. And being in flight or fright, as we would call it in biology, if we are in that kind of state, our body naturally releases cortisol, which is the stress hormone. You might have come across the word cortisol, maybe going over it, you know, uh, with your doctor if you've done certain labs, or if you've heard podcasts. People are now talking about, stress levels and cortisol levels and how to regulate them and how to make sure that your cortisol is under a certain, limit. Otherwise, it starts to have, physical effects on your body. So when we are in that constantly distracted state, our brain is actually constant on alert and it releases cortisol. But on the contrary, when we focus, our brain enters a calm, and those alarms that go off inside your brain, they actually stop going off, and it lowers your cortisol and it promotes a state of mental well being. This is also one reason where if you talk to someone, everybody feels drained mentally. They call it brain fog, but it's actually, just your mind and your body being in a constant, um, ready to run, ready to flee state. Because by design, we are, what should I say? I don't want to use the scientific term here. We are, individuals, we are creatures that, we used to fight for survival. And that is a survival mechanism. But biologically, our bodies can only, survive on that survival mechanism short term. It's not a long-term solution. So when we keep our brains and our bodies in that constant flight or fright mode, it does have, physical symptoms. You might have noticed having irregular breathing patterns if you are constantly, distracted or stressed. You might have noticed, an absence of, the feeling of being grounded. Maybe you have physically experienced a faster heart rate than you have as compared to when things are normal in your brain. So it does have physical, implications. So mental well-being is the product of a focused and calm mind. So focus is a very powerful thing. Um, in getting our brains and our bodies back to normal. Chaos is powerful too. This is why we are so distracted and so away from what we should be feeling, but we aren't. Moving on to the next slide. I think I'm talking way too much here. You might have noticed that I have kept the colors, the theme of this presentation very lean, very clean, and I've tried to have it as decluttered as possible in order for you to not have a sense of, overload when you look at the slides. So there is less on the slides, and I'm talking more about these things as I go. Okay, so now we, as Muslims, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, a guide, and the Quran guides us about pretty much anything and everything. So we need to just look at it from a certain angle, but the guidance is there. So if we look at spiritual and religious perspectives, I have, taken out just a couple of verses from the Quran. There are lots and lots more, but I know we have limited time. So we can, regain focus through being mindful, which is a powerful tool to stop ourselves from being distracted and from being all over the place all the time. So in Surah Mu'minun, for example, we are directed to have khushu in our prayer, which is being focused and submissive. So this verse actually highlights the importance of mindfulness and humility in prayer as a mark of true believers. And prayer is one of the main pillars that actually discipline us for going about the rest of our day. So it actually teaches us to be mindful of whatever we are doing, present with your mind. And you can only be present with your mind if you have enough focus to be there. So this is one thing. The second is reflection, remembrance. For example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Imran that those who remember Allah while standing, sitting, and lying on their sides and give thought to the creation of the heavens and the earth, giving thought, reflecting, observing things, taking the time, stopping from the rat race, stepping aside and observing something so deeply that you only observe it, give thought to it, and then you reflect, you understand, you remember, and you gain focus. Saying, Our Lord, you did not create this aimlessly. Exalted are you, then protect us from the punishment of the fire. So this verse calls for remembrance, deep reflection, which also cultivates mindfulness. So this verse is the perfect example of how to, stop the running engine and just look at the things around you and trying to, you know, connect the purpose of all these things and your life to something bigger, as opposed to just attaining certain milestones that, a certain institution might have set up for you. For example, you have to graduate by this age, you have to get married by this age, have a stable career by this age, have kids by that age, have traveled to I don't know how many countries by that age, have a certain amount of money in your bank account at that age. So this is the rat race. And the rat race doesn't really leave us time to stop and look at the things that are important and that the things that give us signs that actually make us understand why we are here. So stopping, reflecting, and then remembering and cultivating mindfulness is the perfect example on how to gain focus. Let's move on to a couple of more verses that I've put here. So the next verse is from Surah Al-Kahf, to avoid distractions. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and keep yourself patient with those who call upon their Lord in the morning and the evening, seeking his countenance. And let not your eyes pass beyond them, meaning don't let yourself get distracted, desiring adornments of the worldly life. Exactly what modern life has put us up to, chasing materialism and all these things that have been defined as success, presented as success, but actually are not the real definition of success. And do not obey one whose heart we have made heedless of our remembrance. So this verse also emphasizes staying focused on spirituality instead of getting lost in worldly distractions. Then we have a verse from Surah Al-Ahzab, which also focuses on continuous remembrance and zikr. There have been studies actually that uttering the words of remembrance in Arabic, or all these, du'as and the the remembrance that we have been given from the Quran and Sunnah, they actually help to reduce the noise in your brain and help to recenter your thoughts, collect yourself in your brain space up there, in your head, and create a heightened sense of awareness of both yourself and the people around you, the surroundings, other creations, and it actually reconnects you to your fitra, your higher purpose, for what you have been, you and I, we've been brought on this earth to do. I think we have one more verse over here. Yeah, okay. Number 5 is the presence of heart in worship. So this is a verse from Surah Al-Baqarah, which tells us to seek help through patience and prayer. And indeed, it is difficult except for the humbly submissive to Allah. So prayer with focus and humility only comes if we avoid distractions. So I don't know if that happens to you, but it often so happens that there's something that was in your mind, but somehow slipped. And when do you remember it? As soon as you start your prayer. It comes racing back, your mind suddenly goes back there, and your focus goes away from prayer, and you actually start to remember the one thing that you were supposed to do all these days ago, but you couldn't remember. And then it comes back to your conscious, from your subconscious into your conscious. And that's, people might, like to say that's because, Shaitan is trying to distract us, but there is also a biological basis to it, because prayer and, saying the words of prayer from your tongue, it actually clears out the noise and lets what's important to you slip all the way up to the front. Now, if our heart is not at the right place, if we don't have the desired level of khushu in our prayer, and that's a completely different discussion. I'm not saying that, those distractions coming up in your prayer is a good sign, but I'm just, trying to explain the biological basis for this here. So what matters to you will come up to the front of your head. So if you are remembering that one thing that you were supposed to do like months ago, and it comes to you suddenly when you're, on the prayer mat and praying, that is a sign that worship, remembrance, and prayer actually helps your brain focus. Now, what your brain chooses to focus on completely depends on what things you overload your brain with, like what priorities you have set in your brain. Could be worldly ones, could be, religious, but there is a biological basis for those things to, come up all the way to the front. So these were a couple of verses. Now, a question for the audience. Do you have a spiritual practice or an activity that helps you regain focus? Perhaps something you do, a little habit of yours when things get too much, if everything in your head up there gets too loud. Is there something that you have? Could be spiritual, could be religious, any activity that helps you, just pause and remember what you were doing or what you were supposed to be doing. Let me know in the comments. And I will get back after the session. For now, let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so now we go on to, some practical tools. We've talked about the spiritual side of things, the religious side of things, how religion and mindfulness and, prayer and patience and remembrance can help you, regain focus. But we also need to, have some practical strategies to cultivate focus, to, rewire your brain. So the first thing is time blocking, or we also call it task batching. So it's time blocking, which is dedicating a fixed block of time to a specific task and making sure that there's nothing that's distracting you while you are dedicating that amount of time for that specific task. So if your mind wanders around when you're working, something that you can try out practically and that's proven to help is tell yourself, okay, I'm going to give myself, let's say, an hour to finish this, and while I'm doing it, I'm putting away my phone. I'm asking anyone in the house to not come up to me and ask me if I can do anything else for them unless I finish this particular task first. So this is called time blocking. And batching task is when you have a group of similar tasks that could be, done in a go. You group them together and you finish them all in one go. So could be related things that are, for example, let's say things for housewives, things that you need to do in the kitchen. So while you're cooking, you could, quickly look into the fridge, see what groceries you're missing, and quickly make your grocery list or something. Anything that doesn't require you to switch places or move back and forth from one room to the other, have the environment around you change and, get distracted from what you were doing. So this is called, batching tasks, grouping of similar tasks together to avoid the mental load of constantly, switching between completely different types of activities. The second is a digital detox. You need to set boundaries, although it's very difficult, particularly when your work requires you to constantly use one or another form of technology. So we need to be setting boundaries with technology. Maybe what would work for you is, switching off notifications during a particular number of hours during the day, where your phone isn't going to be ringing and you're not going to be looking at it, and you are distancing yourself from the gadgets a little bit. You can also designate within your house screen-free hours, and there are nowadays apps that help you stay focused, which have a lot of research behind them. But I personally don't recommend technology to try and getting away from technology, if you know what I mean. If you want to try and designate technology-free zones or hours within the day or during the week, you shouldn't be using or relying on another, piece of technology to do that. So there are traditional ways to manage those screen-free hours. I personally wouldn't recommend using apps, although there are many on the market now, but that's how it started. To be honest, we were sold technology to make things easier for us, and then more technology to help navigate the technology that we were previously sold, and then more technology and more technology and then some. So that's actually how we got caught up in all that digital overload problem. Then we have the 5-minute rule. Is if you are overwhelmed by anything that you're doing, could be multiple tasks, could be, anything, could be anything physically you're doing, could be anything you're thinking about mentally, just give yourself a 5-minute time out, and try to, recenter your thoughts, focus, and then start again. That would often become easier for you to continue what you were doing. Then we have a couple of, practical mindfulness techniques, including breathing exercises. If you have a racing mind, sometimes accompanied by physical symptoms, if your pulse gets too high, or if your breathing gets too shallow, if your breathing gets too irregular, sometimes people with distractions and, if they're overwhelmed, they go into, anxiety attacks. Some people also have, panic attacks. They start to hyperventilate. Try to do a couple of simple breathing exercises. For example, inhaling for 4 seconds, holding your breath for 4 seconds, and then exhaling for 4 seconds. This is just the simplest one. There are a lot of, breathing exercises for, different purposes, and everybody's, lung capacity is different. So what might work for you might not work for me. So it's a little bit of trial and error before you have a routine that works for you. Some people also like to stick to, meditation, 2 to 5 minutes a day to help clear mental distractions and enhance your focus. These are all things that you need to do from within. A big tool to help you focus is also to change the environmental design around you. So serene spaces and places that don't have a lot of clutter, they actually also cultivate, more focus and help you to minimize distractions. So if you are able to have a workspace or a relaxing space, it could be a room if you have the space to do it, could be a small corner of a room, and it should include a clean, quiet space, maybe have some tools to help you actually physically cancel out the noise. Some people like to use, noise canceling headphones, so they are completely shut out. But then again, that's another form of technology. So if you really want to, stay away from that, then you need to design for yourself an environment that is really free from declutter and technology, and it will minimize distractions. You can also, what helps actually, going for a walk out in nature. Actually, the green or the blue, like green if you're among greenery, blue if you're near water bodies, those natural elements actually reset your mind and your body. Try to go out barefoot. It's called grounding. Grounding helps. If there are places maybe near the beach or maybe a nice clean walkway through the forest, try grounding, try walks, just a change of scenery, something that's serene, that's peaceful, that can help, reset whatever you were going through. That also helps. Decluttering, you know, we've talked about consumerism a little bit before. So we have, in today's world, way too many things lying around in our homes that we don't really need. We've just been sold a false, thought or a false need, um, that without this or that thing, our life wouldn't be easy or it would be impossible to survive. But it actually ends up, lying around somewhere, and it takes up more space than it should. And doing so over a course of time, repeatedly over and over, create spaces that actually don't give us visual cues that are soothing to our minds anymore. So when we look at those spaces, our eyes actually give signals to our brain that the environment isn't really helping. So decluttering, getting rid of anything excessive, anything useless, anything that's, just crowding up your space, it also, helps to be organized and, promote clarity. Okay, so another quick exercise I would like to have your comments in the live chat. Take a minute to identify one major distraction in your surrounding that you can think of right now, and how can you implement the strategies or one of the strategies we just went through to manage it. Let me know the comments and I will go back to them. Okay, then let's move on to the importance of building mental resilience. So mental resilience is the result of consistently focusing even when distractions arise, and it actually physically strengthens our mental muscles. It's like mental resilience is gym for your brain. It has the same effect on your brain that going to the gym and doing, cardio or aerobics or, that kind of stuff, or weightlifting, strength training, what it has for your body. So that is exactly what your brain needs in order to, get back in shape. Regaining focus is the equivalent of getting back in shape for your brain. So you need resilience. The more you practice focus, the better you will get at it. It's the same if you have never worked out a day in your life and then you suddenly hit the gym, and the first couple of weeks are going to be brutal. But as time passes, your body adapts and it actually starts to enjoy, and give you a better results, increased stamina, and you actually start to see results. So it's the same with first you have to push your mind to focus. It will keep forgetting and going back to being distracted and chaotic, and then you have to remind yourself to focus. And it's going to be a little difficult in the start, particularly if you have if you have never tried these techniques, and if you have never or for a long time never been in a state of calm and aware, heightened conscience. But as you keep pushing your brain over and over to, come back and focus, get back to the gym and pull some weights, get back to the gym and pull some weights, then your brain actually starts to enjoy and retain, not only regain, but also retain that focus. So the more you practice it, the better your brain will actually get at maintaining it. You also need to, set boundaries. You should have the ability to say no to distractions. They can come from your environment, could be people, could be meetings, could be irrelevant messages. You might be, just a small example, you might be part of more WhatsApp groups than you are actually active in. So get rid of any WhatsApp groups that don't do you any good, and your phone just keeps, pinging all the day, notifications upon notifications. So the power of staying away from things that don't concern you, just because you don't have the time. You shouldn't have to put in the time and the energy to, distract yourself with those things. So you need to set boundaries. You also need to realize that these distractions are inevitable. So they are only going to get to a point where it goes on and on and on. The distractions in our environment are going to keep on increasing. Technology is going to take over much bigger aspects of our life in the future. And we need to be able to, train our brain to adapt to that change and not lose itself again. So we can, excuse me, so we can bounce back quickly even if we lose focus. It will happen. It's bound to happen, but we need to have practiced those tools long enough and good enough to be able to bounce back. It's also very important to, set your boundaries, know your priorities. If you have clarity on what you want to do, what your goals are, it will become easier for you to say no to things that will be distracting you further down the line, and things that don't actually align with your objectives, your purpose, and your goals. So apply these things starting now. Start small, bit by bit. Years or decades worth of distractions in your mind, they are not going to go away. The chaos is not going to go away in, let's say, 3 days. So you need to be kind to yourself. You need to remind yourself that this is a step-by-step process and that you can get there. But everybody is going to have, a different pace of getting there. So you need to build momentum. And it's also in our religion, the small things, the small good things that we do, but they are consistent. They are more beloved to our Creator than a big, grand, good deed, and then you don't do anything after that. So apply that same principle and start small, be consistent, remind yourself that it's okay to, lapse, but it's always the goal to get back on track. And that's how you build momentum. So you fall, you keep bouncing back, and then there will come a time when you will be, on track, and things will seem, you know, automatic for you. It's not going to be as difficult as it was in the start, and it's going to be much, much easier once you practice it continuously. So this was everything. I tried to keep it under an hour. Yeah, it's been an hour exactly. So now if you've anything you would like to say, any questions, anything that you could relate to, then now is the time. You can just put it in the chat box and I will read it. Let me go through your earlier comments as well. If you have any feedback, anything you think you might have to say to today's topic, any aspect that you might want me to elaborate on a little more, just let me know. Okay, somebody told me you feel tired when you have a lot of plans, a lot of things that you need to do. And with so much multitasking, your brain gets carried away. Yeah, classic. We are supposed to be feeling this way because the main goal is to have us as distracted as we can. And it's also important to have a sense of inner peace, Be happy with the progress that you're making. Don't compare yourself to anyone, Don't get carried away by fake profiles on social media. That's a big, big trap. Puts, unnecessary pressure on you, You also feel stressed, tired, and rushed. Yeah, and productivity goes, from 100 to 0 in a matter of minutes. We don't sleep well, we don't sleep deep. We wake up with, sleep lag. We are actually in sleep debt. So that goes on piling up. It's as if you owe money to the bank, but in this case you actually owe number of hours of sleep to your brain to rest, and that also increases stress, anxiety, depression, distractions, chaos, thoughts all over the place. Okay, in a busy household, we have a question. In a busy household, how can we be focused and calm despite the constant noise and ruckus? Okay, I assume that this is coming from a busy mommy. So, I don't know if you've come across this saying, but you can't pour from an empty cup. So, we live in a society where women, especially mothers, caretakers, they are criticized for, self-preservation, prioritizing, personal well-being and self-care. So in order to effectively, navigate the household, all the things that you need to do, you need to prioritize on, self-preservation. So try to set aside for yourself. You don't need to start doing it, by the hours. So for example, it's also about the people around you. So for example, if you're always available to everybody and everybody is, asking for you, screaming for you, mommy, or you've got, in-laws, or if you're not married, you have, siblings or parents, and they're asking for you, they're calling you, and you're supposed to, listen to them all the time, all at once. It's going to be very difficult to actually, let's say, take out 2 hours all of a sudden and tell them, look, these 2 hours are for myself. I'm not available to anyone, and nobody come asking for me. So in a busy household where you're being available to multitask all the time is actually a given or taking for granted. Start by taking out, maybe a minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes that, wouldn't shake the whole household, and slowly, increase the amount of downtime between tasks. So you do one thing or a group of similar tasks, the batching method that I explained. And when you're done, retreat to your, calm space. Do whatever works for you. Everybody has, certain activity or certain, me time type of thing that, winds you down, makes you relax. So go do that for, let's say, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 50 minutes, whatever is easy for you. Gradually increase the amount of time and the number of times in a day you do it. And in this way, the people around you wouldn't, suddenly be taken aback by, you not being available for them. So, because that's another point of criticism. People like to criticize more than they would like to help you navigate your problems these days. So that's also another issue we could talk about for hours and hours on end. But yeah, there's that. In a busy household, if you can, a very important thing, if you can afford it, delegate your tasks. If you have more people in the house and you know somebody is capable of doing this exactly the way you're doing it, delegate. If you have children, delegate. Divide the tasks among the people in the household. There is really no, championship to be gained by doing everything on your own all the time. It's just deteriorating for you, in the long run. So delegate. If you're able to hire house help, hire them. If you're able to, if you're working both inside and outside the house, divide your chores with your spouse. If you're still unmarried, you have siblings, divide the chores with your siblings. Your duty is to do that, and my duty is I will do this. And, everybody has a little less on their plate than you having everything on your plate all at once. So giving up a little bit of your tasks to other people, which is another issue because some people have difficulty in letting go of control, or if you're a perfectionist, then you won't be satisfied with the way the other person does it. And many of us have that problem. Once again, another thing that we could talk about for hours and hours on end, but try to, navigate and delegate your tasks in the household. Maybe set up a little reward system for the lazy people in the house. Um, if they're kids, they'll get their favorite dinner if they, for example, clean up their rooms, or if they put everything in the laundry basket where it's supposed to go instead of you picking up every piece after them all around the house. That's just an example, but set up a little reward system that, incentivizes the people around you to take things off your plate so that you have more time for yourself to focus, to be mindful, to be less distracted with all the tasks that you have on your plate every day, on repeat, all the time. I hope. Oh, okay. So you're a busy auntie, but close enough. Busy auntie. So the busy auntie is taken for granted always. So you need to learn to set boundaries. The busy auntie is available, but she's not available, at the expense of her own well-being. So setting boundaries is something that you can look into. Nothing harsh, nothing big, but start small, be consistent, build up, and people around you will get used to you not being available at your own expense for others all the time. every time. Do we have any other questions?
I think so. You have answered very of all the questions that we have till now. We can wait
Okay, Alhamdulillah.
1
If there are
minute
no more
more.
questions, then we can, we can stop. Okay, Jazakallah khairan for your attendance. I hope this benefits you in some way. I hope you're able to implement some of it, if not all of it. I suppose after this is over, the session would be available on the YouTube channel. So if you can, share this with people you think can benefit. And
Yes, inshallah.
I hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it easy for us to stay true to what's important, to what's the priority in life, and enable us to make meaningful use of our time
Ameen,
and stop
ameen.
being distracted.
Thank you so much, Sister
What
Afi,
if
for
I
joining.
what if I constantly I have a question, okay. What
Yeah.
if I constantly have a waswasa in my ibadah and stress in my daily actions? Okay. Having a waswasa in your ibadah. So I've had questions like this before, and I have also had people experience this around me before. Having waswasas or intruding thoughts in your ibadah, it's always good to do any acts of worship consciously with thinking about the meaning of the words you're speaking. So for us, it's very easy to just say out loud or in our heart the Arabic words of the prayer or the dua or the dhikr that we are doing, but actually not paying much heed to the meaning, because for the most of us, Arabic is not, the primary language. So we learn all those things by heart, but we don't really pay attention to what it means. So during Salah, even, actually paying attention to your worship word by word with having the meaning in your mind is going to clear away any other things that are in your mind. This is tried and tested. One of our teachers in 10th grade actually gave us this tip, and it actually did work for everybody. So this is one thing that you can, try to regain focus on the actual words that are coming out of your mouth, instead of just muscle memory, and the tongue keeps on talking and talking and talking. We are praying and praying and praying, but your mind is somewhere else. And as soon as your mind steps away from that place of prayer, it gives space for all these waswasas. So if you have your focus on the meaning of the words, inshallah, it will not leave much space for anything else to penetrate your mind in that particular moment, at least. So this is something you can try. I hope I've answered your question. Okay, do we have any other questions?
No, I think so. We're done with the questions. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
then from my side, Jazakallah khairan for attending. Barakallah fikum. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enable us all to make the most use of our time, our energy, our thoughts, translate them into meaningful actions, reduce our distractions, and make us people beneficial for the ummah and for the generations to come. Ameen. Over to my host to end the session, inshallah, and any closing duas that you might want to add.
Jazakallah khair, Sister Yasmin, for joining us today. And I hope so. And inshallah, this session is very beneficial for all of us. Jazakallah
Inshallah.
khair, everyone, for joining us today. Jazakallah khair, everyone, for joining us today. I hope so. Everyone will be good with the health, inshallah ta'ala. Jazakallah khair.
Okay, we are offline now. Alhamdulillah. That was